Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mark Gillette, and I am a NASA JPL Solar System Ambassador. And again, I want to welcome you to my YouTube live event today entitled What's Up at NASA? Could someone please type in the chat box if you can actually hear me, or if I'm only talking to a screen and none of you can hear me? All right, very good. I'm getting, so Dawn and Boulder Public Library, I hear you. All right, very good. So again, welcome. My name is Mark Gillette. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I live in Central Florida. I actually live about 20 minutes from the Walt Disney World Resort. My full-time job, I am a sociology professor at a college in Orlando, Valencia College. I've been teaching there for 25 years. I have a number of hobbies that I love. One is traveling. I've been extremely fortunate to have traveled to all 50 U.S. states. I've traveled to all 7 continents, and I've traveled to about 60 countries. Unfortunately, because of this horrible COVID-19 situation we have upon us, I've had a few trips canceled over the last several months. I was taking a trip to Ecuador, and that got postponed until next year. I was also going down to Chile in August, and that also got postponed. But hey, I guess if that's the worst thing that I have to face during this crisis, then I'm doing pretty well, so I'm not going to complain. In addition to being a sociology professor at Valencia College, I'm also what's called a solar system ambassador. And that's kind of a fancy way of saying I'm a volunteer for NASA. The Solar System Ambassador Program is a joint venture between NASA and JPL, JPL being based out of Pasadena, California. And so basically we are volunteers, we are not employees of NASA, and we like to do presentations. I believe that there are over 1,000 of us now. And we go out into the community and we do presentations about NASA and all things space related. Now, under normal conditions, I would go to local community libraries and do presentations there within the facility. But since all of those facilities have been closed for now 2.5, 3 months, I've decided to move my presentations online using YouTube Live. I believe this is my 3rd or 4th presentation. Most of them have been mostly the same, talking about the basics of NASA and JPL, a little bit about the past, what's happening now, and the future, somewhat like what this presentation will be like today. However, I do have some very specialized programs coming up in the next several months, and I'm going to talk about that in just one moment. But again, I want to welcome you. I don't have all of the answers of perhaps all of the questions that you might ask, and if I don't know what the answer is, I will be honest with you and say I don't know rather than making something up. If you are on a laptop or a tablet, you should have a chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. Maybe if you're on a cell phone, it might be at the bottom. But at any time, if you have any comments or any questions, feel free to type those in the chat box, and I'm going to be periodically looking over at my tablet to see if you have any questions so that we can make this as interactive as it possibly can be in such a situation. So I will try not to overlook any questions as you put them in the text box, in the chat box. If I do accidentally overlook it, then please bring it up at a later time so that I am not ignoring you. So periodically you will see me going like this, and it's not that I am losing my mind, it's just I'm trying to look at my, my tablet to see if there are any questions in the chat box. Speaking of the chat box, if you wouldn't mind, If you could tell me how you heard about today's event that I'm putting on, I would greatly appreciate you just putting that in the box. If it was through a library, if it was through the Night Sky Network's website, anywhere that you heard it, if you could type it in the chat box, I would highly appreciate it. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then absolutely no problem. And I do want to say a word of warning, and I always say this, I'm probably going to go over the hour. I get very enthusiastic and very excited about these things that I'm talking about. And so though I will try to contain it within our hour, I might go over. So that means that if you need to leave early, I will not be offended in any way. You can just go about and do your things that you have planned. You can always come back to my YouTube channel, normally within 24 hours of when this event ends, and it will be archived on my YouTube channel, so you can catch what you didn't get to see. All right, so before we talk about NASA, I do want to mention that I do have additional YouTube live events scheduled for July, August, and September. Next month, July 28th, from 7:30 to 8:30 Eastern Time, and these are all the times are Eastern Time, so if you are on the West Coast, you will need to adjust that by 3 hours. I'm going to do a presentation entitled, Is There Life Beyond Earth? And I will be talking about NASA's attempt to find life out in our solar system and perhaps in the solar system. On Monday, August the 24th at 7:30, I will be doing a presentation entitled Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Anything and everything that you'd like to know about stars. And then on Wednesday, September 30th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be doing a presentation about the planets. So please mark your calendar and come back and join me for these live events. They will be exactly what you're doing right now. A live chat feature will be available. If you're unable to come at these specific times, you can come back to my YouTube channel and see them archived. And please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel while you're here. All right, so here's our brief agenda of what I'd like to do over the next hour or so. I'm going to talk very briefly about the past of NASA, speaking quickly about the Apollo program and the Space Shuttle program. And then we're going to move into, well, what's NASA up to today and what's planned in the future. So today we're going to talk about the International Space Station. We'll talk about satellites, landers, and rovers. And we'll talk about the Commercial Crew program. And then what's coming up in the future. The James Webb Space Telescope, the Artemis program, and just in the last couple weeks, NASA has announced contracts with companies that will be creating human landing systems for the moon. So I'll show you a short video that pertains to that. And then with our time left over, I want to show you some pretty neat ways that you can get involved outside of our presentation today with NASA, different websites that will offer you a lot of neat things that you can do. And we will have a little time for questions and answers at the end. All right, I do want to share a picture with you. On the right-hand side, I do astrophotography, and this is my most recent picture. This is just within the last week. On the left-hand side of the photo, you have M81, which is Bode's galaxy. And on the right-hand side, down at the bottom right-hand corner, you have the Cigar Galaxy, M82. Both of these galaxies are approximately 12 million light years from Earth. So we're talking a really, 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 really far away deep sky object, both of them. This picture is 119 30-second exposure pictures all merged or stacked together. So it's not like I went out with a camera and just took a picture and bang, there you go. For those that may not be familiar with astrophotography, it's all about collecting light. And so the more images that you can take and the longer you keep your shutter open to collect that light, the more detail that you get. So, yeah. All right, NASA. NASA was established in 1958. There were two major programs that led up to the Apollo program. We have Project Mercury, 1958 to 1963. The main objective was simply to put some American astronauts into space. Now keep in mind that we had a space race going on with the former Soviet Union at the time, and so there was a big push to get some American astronauts into space, and that's what that program was about. That was followed by Project Gemini, 1961 and 1966, and this program was all about testing out systems, hardware, and software, and preparing astronauts for the Apollo program. And of course, the Apollo program started back in the early 1960s, but the main part of the program was from 1969 to 1972, where there were 6 landings on the moon, 12 men, 12 astronauts walked on the moon. That was Apollo 11, which was the first landing on the moon, Apollo 12, Apollo 14, 15, and 16, and 17. Of course, Apollo 13, things did not go very well. They did not have the opportunity. They didn't get to land on the moon. If you've not seen the movie with Tom Hanks that came out in 1995 called Apollo 13, I highly recommend it. I believe it's probably on Netflix, some of these other streaming services. It's a great movie that really talks about all the problems that went wrong with Apollo 13, but it was a success because the 3 astronauts were able to make it back safely to Earth, and that's a great thing. All right, that led to the Space Shuttle program. The first Space Shuttle was launched in 1981. That was Space Shuttle Columbia. The last one landed in 2011. That was Space Shuttle Atlantis. The picture that you see on the left-hand side of your screen is a image of the Atlantis Space Shuttle that is on display at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex over on the east coast of Central Florida. If you've not had the opportunity to visit Kennedy Space Center, I highly recommend it. If you are into space, and I assume that you are because you're watching this event, I highly recommend that you go and check it out. They have a lot of neat things on display. On the right-hand side of the screen, you see Endeavour, which is on display at the California Science Center. There's one other space shuttle that is not pictured. That's Space Shuttle Discovery, which is currently located at the National Air and Space Museum near Dulles International Airport in Virginia. Now, of course, unfortunately, Space Shuttle Challenger blew up during launch in 1986, and Columbia disintegrated when landing in 2003. So Atlantis, Endeavour, and Discovery are the 3 remaining shuttles that are in retirement and on display for us to go and enjoy. If you've never seen any of them on display, it's a wonderful thing to do. All right, let me check the chat box. I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to move on. Yeah, there are cows on the moon, but they're only on the far side. All right, so now let's take a look at what's NASA currently up to. So what you're looking at is NASA's current and planned missions. And what I often say when I show this slide is that the first time that I saw it, I was blown away. I knew that NASA was involved with a lot of different missions and projects, but I didn't know that it was quite to this extent. And so, so many things going on up here. Of course, down on the bottom left-hand corner, we have the Earth, and we have all of these satellites that are, again, currently orbiting the Earth, or those that are in bold. Let's see, where does that say that? somewhere up here it says if it's in all caps, I'm sorry, that means that it's a future planned mission. Over here we have a galaxy, so we have the upcoming James Webb Space Telescope. I will talk about that a little bit later. We have Kepler. We have the Hubble Space Telescope. I will talk a little bit about that later. Spitzer, that was retired back in January. All right, so still on my slide, but hasn't been retired that long. Here we have our star, the Sun, perhaps the most popular satellite right now that NASA is working with to study the Sun. It's called the Parker Solar Probe. All right, we have some planets over here. So here we have Mars, and we have what was called the Mars 2020 mission, which has been renamed, and I will be talking about that a little bit later in our presentation. We also have Curiosity. I will be speaking of that. So a lot of things that are going on. I will also mention Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 up here. So the whole point of this is there are a lot of really cool, neat things that are going on. And so if you want to explore any of these in more detail, you can go to nasa.gov, and all of these missions and projects will be listed on their website. So you can get a lot of good information. All right, so the International Space Station construction started back in the 1990s. The first astronauts inhabited the International Space Station back in November of 2000. So that means that there has been about 20 years of continuous use of the International Space Station by astronauts from many countries around the world, because the International Space Station is a cooperative among many countries. So the International Space Station is traveling roughly about 250 miles above the Earth. So all things considered, not that far. They are traveling at 17,500 miles per hour. So they're moving pretty fast. It only takes roughly about 90 minutes for them to orbit the Earth. The International Space Station is roughly the size of an American football field. And they do a number of scientific research studies that simply cannot be done here on Earth. The luxury that they have on the International Space Station is, of course, they don't have gravity. All right, on the right-hand side of your screen, you see the current patch for Expedition 63. And so every group of astronauts or cosmonauts from Russia or other countries that go up to the International Space Station will generally stay roughly about 6 months. Some will stay a shorter duration, some will stay a longer duration, but generally it's 6 months. And so each time a new set will go up, they call it a new expedition. So we're currently on Expedition 63. In Expedition 63, there are 2 Russians and 1 American. Okay. Now, for those who have joined me before, you've heard me talk about the opportunity to walk outside of your door and see the International Space Station go over your home. Now, when you look up, it's not going to look like this that we have on the left-hand side of the screen, okay? What it will look like is this here, this little white dot that I took with my camera. So you will see a little white dot go across the sky. And so it's very easy to know when you can see the International Space Station go near where you live or where you are visiting. Simply go to spotthestation.nasa.gov, and there's a box over here, sign up. I'm not going to go through the registration process. It's going to ask for your email, and it's going to ask for your zip code or where you live. And then what will happen is you will get an email, and the email will look like what you see on the right-hand side of your screen, and it will tell you what day of the week, the date, the time that it will first become visible, and then it will give you some directions on exactly where to look for it. So wherever you are, you will need to know your north and your east and your south and your west. And then you will need to know the degrees from 0 up to 90 and so on and so forth. And so if you can figure out the north, east, south, and west and the rough degrees, you will basically be able to figure out where to look. And so this is from last year. I would be able to look up at 8:33. I would see the space shuttle, the International Space Station for 6 minutes. It appears 11 degrees above the southwest, okay? And then it disappears 12 degrees in the northeast. And so I know it will, based on where I am, it will go from here over here, and it will be visible for 6 minutes. So a lot of people won't get very excited about seeing a little white dot go across the sky, but I do, because I think about what that little white dot is, how much work and engineering it took to build it, and then to think that there are human beings in this space station traveling 17,500 miles per hour doing scientific research. So if you've never done this, I do highly recommend that you check it out. Again, go to spotthestation.nasa.gov and you can sign up for alerts. All right, satellites. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you see an image of what the Voyager satellites look like. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, both launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida in 1977. The mission for both of these satellites were to study and explore the outer planets. Well, they did that, and they did a very good job. And NASA and JPL, they are run out of JPL, were able to extend their missions. And so now both Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 have entered what we call interstellar space. In fact, Voyager 1 entered interstellar space back in August of 2012, while Voyager 2 entered interstellar space back in November of 2018. So among the stars. Give you some interesting statistics about Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. They both originally had 10 instruments on board to do scientific research. Voyager 1 currently only has 4 working instruments. Voyager 2 has 5. And the reason is because there's a limited amount of energy to power the satellites, and they are slowly turning off the instruments to conserve the energy to keep it moving as far as possible, yet still being able to communicate with them to get back data. All right, so it's pretty neat to think about how long these two satellites have been working and how far they are. Voyager 1 is about 13.8 billion miles from Earth, while Voyager 2 is about 11.4 billion miles from Earth. The way that NASA communicates with Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, along with a lot of other satellites, rovers, and landers, is with what's called the Deep Space Network. There are 3 radio telescopes. One is in Pasadena, California, one is near Madrid, Spain, and one is near Canberra, Australia. And so they're positioned all around the Earth. And so these radio telescopes are used to send commands and communication to the satellites, and then the satellites send their commands back. Now, when they send commands to Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, it takes about 17 hours for the command to get from Earth to the satellites. That's how far away they are. And then it takes 17 hours for the downlink to come back to Earth. So you're talking about 34 hours to send updates or information and then to get information back. So that's a really long time. All right. On the right-hand side of your screen, you probably see what's the most famous of all NASA satellites, and that's the Hubble Space Telescope, launched aboard a space shuttle back in 1990. We are now celebrating 30 years of the Hubble Space Telescope. The Hubble Space Telescope is roughly about the size of a small school bus. It orbits the Earth also about every 90 minutes, like the International Space Station, also going at about 17,500 miles per hour. It is a little further away from Earth than the ISS at about 350 miles. All right. Often, a lot of pictures that you will see that are presented from NASA will come from the Hubble Space Telescope. All right, it's provided us many awesome looking pictures. Now I want to quickly show you what perhaps is the most famous of all of the pictures that have come from Hubble, and it's called the Ultra Deep Field. So some scientists decided what they wanted to do was point Hubble's cameras into what they felt was a non-discrete section of the sky. Didn't think that there was anything special about this part of the sky at all. And they decided to take many, many images over many, many hours. Much like I was talking about earlier, how I take my astrophotography pictures. I take individual pictures and then I merge them all together to see what I get. So this is a picture of many, many hours of images taken all stacked together. And scientists were shocked because almost everything that you're seeing in this picture, with some exceptions like this here and like this here, these would be stars in our own Milky Way galaxy. But most of what you're looking at here are galaxies. Okay? Each one of these contain billions and billions of individual stars that collectively make up a galaxy. So there are approximately 10,000 galaxies in this image. All right. Now keep in mind that this is a non-discrete section of the sky. So we can only assume that if this is a very tiny section of the sky, non-discrete, and it has all of these galaxies, that there are a whole lot more galaxies out there in the other parts of the sky that Hubble has not imaged. So pretty exciting. All right, let me check the chat box here. Again, I'm not seeing any pictures at any time. If you'd like to, type anything in there and I will be glad to answer those as we go along. Let's talk about landers and rovers. On the right-hand side of your screen, you see the Mars Curiosity rover, which landed on Mars back in August of 2012. It is a rover because it has wheels and it roves around or moves around. It has gone roughly about 14 miles. It's traveled 14 miles while on Mars. It is looking for current and past microbial life on Mars, and that's what a lot of the landers and rovers do once they get to Mars. On the left-hand side of your screen, you see what's called the Mars Insight lander. It is a lander, which means that it doesn't have any wheels. It can't move around. Once it lands, it will stay put and not move around. This landed on Mars back in November of 2018, so about a year and a half ago. And it is doing some scientific research. It's collecting soil samples, and it is doing some research on what they can find within the soil. Now, this little contraption right here is a drill, and the ultimate goal is hopefully to be able to drill down about 16 total feet below the surface, the Mars surface. And if you do keep up with space-related news, unfortunately NASA has had quite a number of problems with the drill working and working properly. So the challenges kind of come and go, but hopefully they will be able to get to the full 16 feet that they are hoping for and see what's going on below the Martian surface. All right. All right. Now, here we got something very exciting going on. So, NASA's newest Mars rover, originally titled Mars 2020, was back in March retitled or named Perseverance. The Perseverance Mars rover, and here is an image, an illustration on the left-hand side of your screen. You can see the wheels, so it will be able to move around, was originally scheduled to be launched on July the 17th, so about 2.5 weeks from now. It's been delayed twice. So now it is scheduled to launch from Cape Canaveral, Florida on July the 22nd. So if you want to see this live and you don't live in the area, I'm fortunate. Living in Central Florida, all I have to do is walk out my front door and look to the east, and if it's not a cloudy day, I can see the launches. So I'd like to be right up close and watching it, but that's not always possible. And so many of you live in different parts of the country, like Denver and Seattle, and so you don't have the opportunity to do that. But you can go on to nasa.gov, and they will cover this live on their website. On the right-hand side of your screen, you see the helicopter that will be attached to the bottom of the Perseverance rover. This is the first time that NASA will be sending a rover out into the solar system to do some exploration. So it's really exciting because just as the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover is getting ready to land on Mars, the the helicopter will separate and is scheduled to do some flying. It's not going to be flying, many, many miles away from its landing site, but if they can get it to travel several feet, several yards, it's going to be considered a success. And on future missions, they're probably going to include more helicopters to do some research from the air. So it's opening up an entirely new set of opportunities for exploration on distant planets. All right. Now I want to talk about NASA's Commercial Crew Program. When the Space Shuttle program ended back in 2011, we no longer had a way of getting American astronauts back and forth to the International Space Station. So NASA has contracted with two companies, SpaceX and Boeing, to do that for us. On the left-hand side of your screen, you see the Crew Dragon right here. This is SpaceX's command module to ferry our American astronauts back and forth to the International Space Station using their Falcon 9 rocket. This is Launch Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, and this is the pad that they use to launch the astronauts back and forth. On the right-hand side of your screen, you see Boeing. Boeing's command module is called the Starliner, and they use a ULA Atlas V rocket to launch their Starliner. Now, unfortunately, Boeing has had some problems and issues with the Starliner. They did a launch back in December of 2019. I was fortunate. I actually went over to Cape Canaveral and saw the launch. It was supposed to dock with the International Space Station. Unfortunately, because of some software problems, it never was able to dock. And so Boeing had to go back and take a look at the software issues. And so Boeing has decided that they are going to do another test launch of the Starliner, this time docking with the International Space Station. And once they complete all of the checks and the tests, then they will be bringing some astronauts to the International Space Station. Now, SpaceX has already been able to accomplish that because back about 3 weeks ago now, they launched 2 American astronauts on May 30th from Kennedy Space Center, again aboard a Falcon 9 rocket, to the International Space Station. So on the left-hand side, you see Bob Behnken, and on the right-hand side, you see Doug Hurley. Those were the 2 American astronauts that were launched on that Falcon 9 rocket, and they are currently at the International Space Station along with the 3 other people that I mentioned earlier, the 2 cosmonauts from Russia and the 1 American. Now, both Doug and Bob are there for a extended stay at the International Space Station. NASA has not, from my knowledge, announced when they will be returning back to Earth. I believe their mission could be up to 2 or 3 months. So if you kind of keep up with NASA news, I would say that probably in the next, I would say maybe 2 to 3 weeks, they should be announcing when Doug and Bob will be scheduled to come back using the Crew Dragon, the SpaceX Crew Dragon. All right. We have a launch alert. Tomorrow, June the 25th, 4:18 Eastern Time, a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket is expected to launch the 10th batch of approximately 60 satellites for SpaceX's Starlink broadband internet network, a mission designated as Starlink 9. 2 Earth observation microsatellites for Black Sky Global, a Seattle-based company, will launch as rideshare payloads on this mission. Now, I'd like to share a website with you. It's spaceflightnow.com. If you would like to keep up with all of the launches regarding if they're on the East Coast or the West Coast, even if they're international launches, if you go to spaceflightnow.com and click on launch schedule, you can see all of the different launches scheduled globally all around the world. And so here's that launch I'm talking about. That's tomorrow from Kennedy Space Center Launch Complex 39A. Right? Spaceflightnow.com. Okay. All right, tomorrow. Tomorrow is June the 26th. Yes, I have the wrong date. That's correct. Thank you for pointing that out. I have Friday, June 25th. Today is Thursday, June 25th. So we are looking at Friday, June the 26th. Thank you for correcting me on that. Yes, congrats to SpaceX. What an awesome, awesome thing that they've done. The first time that a private company has brought astronauts into space. So kudos to them. And I believe that Boeing is going to come pretty soon, and they're going to shine as well. So I'm looking forward to Boeing joining that unique class. All right, so I want to talk about a couple future big projects that NASA's working on. And the first one I want to mention is the James Webb Space Telescope. This is named after NASA's second administrator. It's currently scheduled to be launched next year from South America. This telescope has been postponed many times over many years. They've had a number of engineering and design issues and problems, but they have to get this right. Consider that the Hubble Space Telescope is only about 350 miles above the Earth. And so it could be repaired easily when we had the Space Shuttle program. The Space Shuttle would fly up, it would meet up with the Hubble Space Telescope, it would grab it with the robotic arm, pull it in, astronauts could do spacewalks, they could fix it all up, release it, and let it go. And indeed, they did that quite a number of times. Well, the James Webb Space Telescope will be launched and will operate about 1 million miles from the Earth. And so not only do we no longer have the space shuttle, we don't have any type of technology that can go that far, grab the James Webb, and fix it. So they have to make sure that they get it right, because if they launch this and something goes wrong, that's it. There's nothing that they're going to be able to do. And many, many, many hours and weeks and years of work and a lot of money has gone into this will unfortunately all be wasted. So that's why they're delaying this and delaying it, because they definitely want to make sure that they're getting it right. All right, why are they sending it out so far away from Earth? Because it needs to work in very cold conditions. If they keep it too close to the Earth radiates heat, and this space telescope will not work well under those conditions. So they need to get it far away from Earth and in extremely cold conditions. And indeed, if you see at the bottom of this screen here, this is a sunscreen that will open up after launch and will protect the space telescope from radiation and from heat from the sun. I actually have a short video that I often have issues playing because it doesn't always want to play properly, but I'm going to cross my fingers because it's a really cool video and hope that it will play for us. I'm going to give this a moment. Every time I try to play this, I have issues and problems. It's not my computer. It's where this is based. I don't know if they note that they have computer issues, but let's see if we can get this to play, because it really is a cool video.
Webb Space Telescope is the next premier space observatory. It will extend the discoveries of the Hubble Space Telescope and observe the birthplaces of planets, stars, and galaxies.
Okay, it's going to freeze up again, but I think it will continue here in a moment.
It is named after James Webb, NASA's second administrator and champion of many NASA science missions. At 3 stories high and the size of a tennis court, this will be the largest telescope ever sent.
All right, we're going to stop one more time. If it doesn't continue playing after the next attempt, then I'll go ahead and bypass it. And I will put the video link in the comment section, and you can come back
to space
and see it a little
and
later.
100 times more powerful than Hubble. It is so big it has to fold to fit into the rocket only 5.5 meters wide, and unfold segment by segment once in space.
Okay. I'm going to give this up. So again, you can always come back to my YouTube channel, and I will post the link of the video there, and you can watch it at a later time. All right, the next big thing coming up for NASA is what's called a Space Launch System, SLS. On the left-hand side of your screen, you see the rocket that is currently under construction, that's being built. This is the rocket that will take us back to the moon, and the same rocket will be used to go on into deeper space on the Mars, hopefully in the 2030s. NASA released the official logo of the Artemis program last year, and of course Artemis is part of Greek mythology, the twin sister of Apollo. All right, so this is the logo for our return to the moon. Talk a little bit about the SLS. It is a heavy lift deep space hardware rocket which means it's really, really big and really, really powerful. It will be the most powerful rocket ever built and used once completed. It's evolvable. What does that mean? That means that it can be used for either transporting astronauts, as it is in these two configurations here. It can also be used to transport cargo, and these are fairings that would be covering up whatever is inside there, like a space telescope. All right. Artemis 1 is scheduled for the fall of 2021, next year. If all goes well, the SLS will launch from Kennedy Space Center. It will go around the moon a few times, testing all of the software and the hardware, and will return to Earth. The mission, I believe, is scheduled to last roughly 30 to 45 days. No astronauts are scheduled to be aboard Artemis 1. Artemis 2 is now scheduled for somewhere between late 2022 and early 2023. 4 NASA astronauts are going to be on board. They will be launched from Kennedy Space Center. They will travel around the moon and return to Earth. They will be testing out all of the software and the hardware. And again, the difference is there will be astronauts on board, unlike Artemis 1, which will be all automated. And then if all goes well, and there are a lot of challenges that will come up between now and then, like for example, NASA did not plan on the coronavirus, and so that may unfortunately affect the schedule. No news releases have been released as of yet, so Artemis 3 is still scheduled for 2024, and that is the landing on the moon, the first American astronaut woman and the next man. So it's good to see that we will be launching an American woman to land on the moon. And again, this rocket will be used to go to Mars in the 2030s. All right, the capsule that the astronauts will be using for the Space Launch System is called Orion. The Orion capsule will be going into deep space, unlike the Space Shuttle, which only kind of orbited the Earth about 200 to 300 miles above the Earth. So when it returns to Earth, it will be going significantly faster than the Space Shuttle. So it must be built in order to resist the heat that will be built up. It does accommodate up to 5 astronauts, but NASA has plans to send only 4 astronauts in the Orion capsule. All right, I have a short little video about the Space Launch System, SLS, and the Orion capsule.
50 years ago, we pioneered a path to the moon. The trail we blazed cut through the fictions of science and showed us all what was possible.
Very pretty out here.
Today, our calling to explore is even greater. To go farther, we must be able to sustain missions of greater distance and duration. We must use the resources we find at our destinations. We must overcome radiation, isolation, gravity, and extreme environments like never before. These are the challenges we face to push the bounds of humanity. We're going to the moon to stay by 2024, and this is how.
This all starts with the ability to get larger, heavier payloads off planet and beyond Earth's gravity.
For this, we designed an entirely new rocket.
The Space Launch System. SLS will be the most powerful rocket ever developed.
And with components in production
And more in testing?
This system is capable of being the catalyst for deep space missions
we need a capsule
that can support humans from launch
through deep space and return safely back to Earth. For this, we've built Orion.
This is NASA's next-generation human space capsule.
Using data from lunar orbiters that continue to reveal the moon's hazards and resources.
We're currently developing an entirely new approach to landing and operating on the moon.
Using our commercial partners to deliver science instruments and robotics to the surface, we are paving the way for human missions in 2024.
Our charge is to go quickly and stay, to press our collective efforts forward with a fervor that will see us return to the moon in a manner that is wholly different than 50 years ago.
We want lunar landers that are reusable,
that can land anywhere on the lunar surface.
The simplest way to do so is to give them a platform in orbit around the moon from which to transition.
An orbiting platform to host deep space experiments and be a waypoint for human capsules. We call this lunar outpost Gateway.
The beauty of the Gateway is that it can be moved between orbits
It will balance between the Earth and Moon's gravity.
in a position that is ideal for launching even deeper space missions.
In 2009, we learned that the moon contains millions of tons of water ice.
This ice can be extracted and purified for water. It can be separated in oxygen for breathing or hydrogen for rocket fuel.
The moon is quite uniquely suited
to prepare us and propel us to Mars and beyond.
This is what we are building.
This is what we're training for.
This we can replicate throughout the solar system.
This is the next chapter of human space exploration.
Humans are the most fragile element of this entire endeavor, and yet we go for humanity. We go to the moon and onto Mars to seek knowledge and understanding and to share it with all. We go knowing our efforts will create opportunities that cannot be foreseen. We go because we are destined to explore and see it with our own eyes. We turn towards the moon now, not as a conclusion, but as preparation, as a checkpoint toward all that lies beyond. Our greatest adventures remain ahead of us. We are going.
We're going.
We are going.
We are going. We're going.
Okay. NASA, in the last several weeks, announced the companies that they will be partnering with to create the landing systems just mentioned in the video that we saw. So here's a very short video telling us a little bit more about the landing systems.
Apollo led the way to the moon, and we, the Artemis generation, are going there to stay. Those of us in blue flight suits, the start of the Artemis generation of astronauts, could not be more excited about contributing to our nation's goal of putting the first woman and the next man on the lunar surface by 2024.
We, NASA, have been partnering with U.S. industry in order to achieve the best of what each organizations bring. So without further ado, the companies are SpaceX. The SpaceX design is a single-stage solution using their Starship. The SpaceX proposal included in-space propellant transfer demonstration and uncrewed test landing. The second company is Dynetics, and Dynetics has many partners that they will be working with. It also has a very unique low-slung crew module, putting the crew very close to the lunar surface for transfer and access. Dynetics will perform a demonstration flight to verify key capabilities for its lander system. And the third team is the national team, with Blue Origin as the prime. The team's design is a three-stage architecture consisting of an ascent, descent, and transfer elements. With this diverse set of architectures, NASA is confident in our nation's ability to perform the Artemis missions.
The landing on the moon in 2024 will be the most dangerous and complex flying task attempted by humans in more than 50 years. And it's only been done 6 times ever. That's why we're so excited about how to learn how to fly these landers so we can make that smooth touchdown on the lunar surface and do what we came for, lunar surface exploration.
Okay. All right, so we are about at the top of the hour. I am encouraged not to talk about NASA's budget as a solar system ambassador. However, I do feel like it is very important to share this information because I think there are a lot of misunderstandings about NASA's budget. So on your screen, you see NASA gets blank percent of the total U.S. federal budget. A less than 1%, B 7%, C 13%, and D greater than 20%. Can any of you, would any of you like to type in the chat box what you feel NASA gets? Again, we're looking at the total U.S. federal budget. What percent does NASA get? I'll give you a moment to type something in the chat box. A. Okay, so I see a couple people putting A. And yes, A is the correct answer. NASA's portion of the federal budget is actually less than 1%. It's 1/2 of 1%. And when I think about all of the things that NASA does, I personally feel like that's money well spent. There are so many technology spin-offs that we enjoy today that's a result of things that NASA has done in the past. And if you go on NASA's website, nasa.gov, they have an entire section dedicated to all of the things that we enjoy today as a result of their being in existence. Like to see NASA get more of a budget, but money is a restricted and scarce resources, so I think I will leave that conversation for another time. All right, so I do want to, if you'd like to stay with me a few minutes, I've got some things that you can do to experience NASA for yourself when we get offline. I don't have time to share all of these. Again, nasa.gov, if you go to their website, they have just an incredible amount of information. If it's NASA related, you can find it on this website. So I recommend that. I also highly recommend NASA Eyes. This is really, really cool. So I want to demonstrate this to you if you are not familiar with NASA Eyes. If you simply do a Google search for NASA Eyes, I'm not going to take you to the website. I'm going to show you the little shortcut that I have downloaded to my laptop. You will download some software. It doesn't take a lot of space on your computer. And I'm opening it up. And so this is really neat stuff. And so we're going to go take a look at our solar system. And you can zoom in and you can zoom out. I was talking about the Parker Solar Probe earlier. And so if you would like to know exactly where the Parker Solar Probe is, use NASA Eyes, and there it is. This is real time. This will show you exactly where it is. This is really cool because you can go forward in time, you can go backward in time. So if you'd like to know where the Solar Parker Probe was 2 months ago, you simply go back in time. And I'm not going to take the time to go through all of this or let you do it on your own. You can see where Parker Solar Probe was 2 months ago. If you'd like to know where it's going to be next year at this time, you can also use this date and time section to fast forward it. So let's scroll out here and keep scrolling out and out and out. And you can see the orbit of Jupiter and Saturn. We'll keep going out. And there's Pluto. And look at what we've got here. There's Voyager 2 and here's Voyager 1. And again, these are real time. These show us really where they are located in perspective to where we are. You can turn these sideways. You can click on any of the titles and it will provide you information about what you're clicking on. If it's a planet, if it's a satellite, you can look at the satellite up close. It will give you all kinds of information. This is really cool, really cool. It's called NASA Eyes. So I highly recommend that you take a look at that. Another one is, let's see here. I will talk about observing with NASA. Observing with NASA is an opportunity for you to take images. Observing with NASA. So I'm just doing a Google search. Observing with NASA. It will take you to this website, and you can take images of planets, of nebula, using their telescope. You don't need a telescope, you don't need a camera, you don't even have to leave your couch. You basically will go in here and pick from a variety of deep sky objects to have a telescope image. It will take the picture specifically for you. You will get an email alert saying, okay, your picture has been taken and here it is, and then you can access it. It's not quite like, you know, setting up your own telescope and camera, but it still allows you the opportunity to take some pretty cool pictures. So I recommend you check that out if you've never checked it out. All right, so I'm not going to go through the rest of the items on my list here, but you can also look up NASA at Home, NASA Citizen Science, NASA Home and City, and the Center for Near-Earth Object Study. So if you're concerned about an asteroid, something coming to hit the Earth, they keep track of all of that, and you can keep track of it as well. All right, so I want to remind you again, Tuesday, July the 28th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be doing a YouTube Live, Is There Life Beyond Earth? The following month, Monday, August 24th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, come hear all about stars, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Wednesday, September 30th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to be talking about the planets. So please make sure that you mark these on your calendar if you're interested in coming back and joining me. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. Also turn on notifications because I will be posting short little promo videos talking about upcoming sessions that I'm going to offer. So don't forget to subscribe. And questions. So we are past the hour, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them out to me and I will do my best to answer them. And I do want to send a shout out to the King County Library System in Seattle, Washington State. Thank you so much for joining me. I know that it was your lunch hour for some of you, and that's the reason that it was planned at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And I also want to thank the Winfield Library. Thank you for joining me. So I'm just checking my chat box. Any questions? Anyone have any questions? Anything that you'd like me to try to clarify or... Not seeing anything. All right. Well, if you do come up with any questions later, come back to my YouTube channel, find this archived video. You can type your questions in the comment section, and I will be sure to answer your questions. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's been my pleasure to talk to you about NASA. And I so hope to see you back again very soon. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.